The music had only just started to diminish when the doors at the rear of the elegant wedding hall flew open with force. Every guest's attention shifted, every expression of joy became suspended, and momentarily the atmosphere itself appeared to cease its flow. There, silhouetted against the warm golden illumination from the corridor, stood a young boy who couldn't have been more than 9 years old. His small white dress shirt bore creases, his vest was fastened only halfway, his hair showed signs of dishevelment, as though he had sprinted the entire distance to this place. Yet what brought absolute silence to the gathering wasn't his unexpected entrance. It was the delicate newborn infant nestled securely in his left arm, swaddled in a thin pale blanket. The boy's remaining hand shook with emotion yet remained resolute as he extended it toward the groom positioned at the altar. "You are the one responsible for my baby sister having no place to call home," he called out, his voice breaking with both terror and rage. Audible gasps spread throughout the assembled guests. The bride's expression of happiness dissolved, her fingers reflexively grasping at her veil, and the groom, he remained completely motionless as though the very walls surrounding him were pressing inward. Before we proceed further, if you hold faith in compassion, opportunities for redemption, and the strength of honesty, please consider taking a brief moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Untold Stories 0.4, where narratives of the soul serve as reminders of what genuinely holds importance. The wedding attendees remained frozen, caught between skepticism and sympathy. The groom, Nathan Pierce, a refined young gentleman dressed in a navy blue suit, had dedicated his morning to declaring to everyone that this represented the most joyful day of his existence. Yet now, as he faced the boy with the unsteady voice, he appeared ashen, empty, and utterly disoriented. The bride, Claire, still adorned in her lace wedding dress, gazed on in astonishment, her perfect wedding ceremony dissolving right before her vision. The small boy answered to the name Oliver, though nobody present was aware of this yet, and his movement toward the altar displayed reluctance paired with resolve. In the space behind him, several tardy guests peered inside, uncertain whether to step forward or simply observe what seemed like something profound, sorrowful, and unfiltered revealing itself in the present moment. Oliver's tiny dress shoes produced faint echoes against the marble flooring as he came to a halt mere feet away from the couple. The infant shifted slightly within his embrace, releasing a gentle whimper from its mouth. His bottom lip trembled noticeably, yet he refused to retreat. The reality he bore had been pressing down on him for multiple days, reality his mother had revealed through her weeping, reality he found impossible to forget. His mother, Grace, had previously been employed by Nathan prior to his betrothal to Claire, sanitizing office spaces during late evening hours, occasionally accompanied by young Oliver since she lacked the financial means for childcare. Nathan had initially shown kindness, providing her with transportation to her residence, hot coffee, comforting language. However, that generosity had transformed into something different, something Grace had never wished to discuss until just recently, when her physical condition started deteriorating and the infant in her embrace became evidence of both affection and deception. Throughout many months, she had pleaded with Nathan to provide assistance, to at minimum acknowledge the child he had brought into existence. Yet he had severed all communication, blocking her telephone number, acting as though she had never been part of his world. He was constructing a fresh existence, one in which past errors could be concealed beneath matrimonial promises and captured images. Grace had informed Oliver about his infant sister, about the man who had once given assurances of support but subsequently abandoned them. And despite her attempts to prevent him, the boy's conscience could not tolerate witnessing his mother's decline while the man bearing responsibility celebrated beneath crystal fixtures. Therefore he fled. He sprinted the full distance from their modest apartment, holding the baby protectively against him, pursuing the sound of melodies and chimes that appeared to ridicule everything he understood to be true. When Oliver vocalized his thoughts once more, his voice fractured with raw feeling. "My mom is currently hospitalized," he stated quietly, his eyes becoming moist. "She instructed me to convey that she pardons you, regardless of whether you hold affection for us." The quietness that emerged afterward was intolerable. Guests adjusted their positions, some placing hands over their mouths, others murmuring religious words. Claire's complexion became drained of color. She shifted her gaze from the boy to her betrothed, seeking contradiction, seeking clarification. Yet Nathan offered no response. His hands quivered at his flanks, his jaw tightened defensively. Moisture gathered along his eyelids, as though the barriers he had constructed were disintegrating before the entire assembly. Gradually he advanced a single step forward. The congregation created space, and even the musical accompaniment had ceased long ago. Nathan's consciousness became saturated with recollections. Extended evenings at the workplace, the resonance of Grace's amusement, her gaze abundant with tenderness before remorse supplanted those emotions. He had convinced himself he lacked the maturity to assume paternal duties, lacked the availability while establishing his career. He had concealed the reality beneath multiple strata of professional drive and material ease. Yet now, as he observed Oliver positioned there alongside the baby he had chosen not to recognize, humiliation contorted through him like a blade piercing flesh. He lowered himself to his knees. He attempted to articulate words, but his voice fractured. The burden of every decision he had executed bore down until he struggled to draw breath. Claire withdrew a step, her heartbeat accelerating, moisture descending along her face. "Is this the truth?" she breathed. Yet Nathan remained unable to provide confirmation. He held no obligation to do so. The reality was evident across every feature of his expression. Momentarily, existence itself appeared to disintegrate. The ornamental archway, the beaming attendees, the destiny they had arranged, all of it fragmenting into a silence interrupted solely by the gentle sound emanating from the baby within Oliver's grasp. The boy's expression grew tender. He had not arrived seeking vengeance, merely seeking transparency. His mother's guidance resonated within his thoughts. "People commit errors, Ollie, but occasionally they require witnessing the pain they've inflicted before they can rectify their actions." Nathan extended his reach cautiously, his hand displaying tremors, and delicately made contact with the baby's diminutive hand. The infant responded, clasping his finger through instinct. The audience observed in hushed stillness as a solitary tear descended along Nathan's face. "I apologize," he murmured, voice wavering. "I am profoundly sorry." Oliver remained standing wordlessly, eyes dampened yet unwavering. For the initial time, the rage within his small frame started to diminish. He possessed no certainty whether this man possessed the capacity to ever rectify circumstances, but witnessing his remorse signified the reality had ultimately penetrated his defenses. Nathan rotated toward Claire, his spirit laden with disgrace. He anticipated her departure, her escape, her permanent disappearance from his existence. Yet alternatively, she directed her attention to Oliver, subsequently to the baby, and drew a profound, unsteady breath. "Transport your mother to safety," she articulated softly. "We shall provide her with assistance." Her declaration carried no volume, yet it permeated through every consciousness in the chamber like sacred words. The spectators remained stationary, affected not by controversy but by absolution. Nathan acknowledged with a nod, moisture flowing without restraint now as the guests bowed their heads in wordless reverence. The boy displayed no smile, yet tranquility resided within his gaze, the variety that manifests when reality ultimately discovers illumination. If this narrative resonated within your spirit, please consider taking a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Untold Stories 0.4, where authentic empathy and bravery continue to hold significance. Before concluding, please share your thoughts below. Would you grant forgiveness to someone who caused you suffering if they genuinely expressed regret? As the musical accompaniment recommenced with gentleness and the guests initiated their departure, Nathan proceeded alongside Oliver down the ceremonial pathway, not advancing toward an unblemished destiny but advancing toward atonement. Within his embrace, the baby shifted once more, protected for the initial occasion and an extended duration. And within that tranquil instant, encompassed by fractured commitments and restored spirits, a man who had previously escaped from affection ultimately discovered it present within the grasp of a child who had declined to surrender.